glad when he get over his fear of heights.
He will. He will.
Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I am half of your host, Perry Constantine.
And I am the more distinguished other half, Derrick Ferguson.
How you doing today, Derrick?
Oh, I'm doing quite splendidly. Thank you very much. Celebrated a birthday last weekend.
Mm-hmm. Now, you actually beat me to it because I was going to do this whole thing about it. So I did want to... I did want to make a little... I want to make a little announcement of it. And I just wanted to say that, you know, this show... I've been trying to get some variation of this show together for years, and like I had like two different attempts before. One, it was just like scheduling problems; we just could not make it work out. The other is the other attempt I made. We had some professional concerns that came up between us and that kind of thing. But the one thing about this show that I think it really needed was, you know, that certain X factor that you can't really describe. And what really brought this show together and why we've been able to, you know, beat the podcast curse of 10 episodes so far and seem to keep going strong is I knew I needed someone that I could really connect to on this show. Someone who really kind of showed me some new things about these movies and who I could also have a good time talking with. And this show would not be possible without this man over here. So I want everybody here to please join me wishing him a happy birthday and many more. And if you want to congratulate him, to celebrate him, I urge you, go to Amazon.com, type in Derrick Ferguson, and buy one of his books. It does not matter which one because they're all amazing. So thank you so much, buddy, and happy birthday.
Thank you very much. That means a lot coming from you, you know, because as some of you listening to this may know, you know, Perry and I have been friends for longer than either of us would care to remember. I remember him when he was just a snot-nosed kid aggravating everybody in fan fiction.
Yeah.
And I was always sticking up for you. I said, listen, the kid is all right. He's all right. He's cool. He's a pain in the ass, but he's a talented pain in the ass. So, yeah. And also, you had the virtue of a lot of times you were right. It was just your delivery. You know, that's all it was, the way you said it. But
fortunately, I'm a little bit older now, a little bit wiser, and still just a massive pain in the ass.
Yeah, but you tempered it, like you said, with, you know, age. I mean, with age. I mean, you know, that pain in the assedness, you know, gets tempered and you learn how to modify it and direct it to where it's actually needed.
Yeah.
But, you know, if anybody had told me after doing a podcast for 7 years, which I'm still amazed that I did one for 7 years, that I would be back doing one, I would have laughed myself into a hernia. Because as you said, now I didn't know about this podcast curse that you speak of, this 10 episode podcast curse, but I do know that most of the podcasts that I listen to rise and fall on the strength of the interaction between the people that are doing it. You know, and as you said, it's an X factor. It's something that can't be forced.
Right.
You know, it develops over time. And even though we've never actually met in person, we have spoken enough, you know, through this medium and online enough that we have a good knowledge of each other's personality and how we think about certain things. And you know, surprisingly enough, we agree on a whole lot of things that people might not think that we would agree on.
Yeah.
Given our age, our age difference.
But also, surprisingly, we disagree on some things that people would think we'd absolutely agree on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But to me, that's what makes it such a ball game. To me, there is nothing more boring than for me to be interacting with somebody that likes everything the same way I like it, or agrees to me about everything, and all this other. No. I thrive on talking with people who have other opinions from me. Something that has gotten lost in our society, apparently, because if you have a different opinion from somebody else, they're ready to lynch you. But yeah, but no, but I'm having a great time doing this, and thank you for inviting me to do this. I am continually surprised every time I watch one of these movies how much I'm enjoying this, because I'm looking at them in a new light, in a new fashion, simply because I know, okay, well, I have to talk about this thing like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'm looking at them in a different way now, and seeing a lot of things in them I didn't see before.
Yeah, exactly. And well, before we get into today's movie, you saw another superhero movie recently, didn't you?
Oh yeah, Birds of Prey.
So what did you think? What's like your kind of like overall 100-mile view of it?
I went because, my birthday was on Saturday, so it came out Friday. So I said to my wife, I said, well, I'm going to go see Birds of Prey. And she said, well, have a good time. No, she's not in superhero movies. So yeah. I went down and, so I went in, I went and saw it. Surprisingly enough, the theater was pretty crowded for I went to an 11 o'clock show. And the theater was fairly crowded.
That's good, because I hear a lot of people have been saying online that it hasn't been doing as well as expected. So, but that's hyperbole. I don't know. I haven't actually looked at the numbers. So, but that's heartening to know that it was crowded at 11 o'clock.
Well, you know why I think that people are saying that, because, and really I don't know. We have to get away from this thing where just because we see people running around in costumes and stuff like that, that it's automatically a superhero movie. Birds of Prey is actually more of a cracked out crime thriller with, people running around and, they're running around in what you might call costumes, but it's stuff that, I don't know. It's hard for me to describe. It's not a superhero movie. It really isn't. Okay. Harley Quinn is in it, yeah, but she's not what you would call a superhero.
No.
She doesn't have superpowers. There's no Joker. There's no Batman, thank God. Although they do get mentioned. Nobody is shy about mentioning, which is also one thing that I like about it, because I don't like superhero movies that take place in the city like Gotham or, Metropolis, and everybody pretends like they've never heard of Batman or, the Penguin, the Joker, anything like that. Other characters are mentioned, but since they're not important to the story, we don't see them. There's no reason for us to see them. Yeah. Especially since Harley Quinn is breaking away from the Joker. Right. And that's what the movie, that's how it starts out. She's breaking away from the Joker. And then it turns into this crime thriller where she has to find this diamond that leads to this immense fortune held by the Bertinelli mafia crime family. And all of these different characters are running around looking for this diamond that's been stolen by this young pickpocket named Cassandra Cain.
Speaking of Birds of Prey, and you mentioned the Joker, just reminded me that I just wanted to give a shout out to Joaquin Phoenix for winning his first Oscar for playing the Joker.
Yeah, well, it was kind of like a lock. Yeah, I think most people pretty much said, yeah, oh, okay, well, he's going to take it. And while I can't say that, I don't know. Let me see how I feel about this. I don't know how I feel about this, because of course everybody's asking, what did you think about him? Okay, did you think that he deserved the Oscar? Yeah, but then again, I don't know. Did he really deserve to win an Oscar for a movie that's basically Martin Scorsese fan fiction? I mean, that's what that's what Tom DJ calls it. And, and I have to admit that, yeah, he's right. Basically, that's what the movie is. It's, Martin Scorsese fan fiction. Yeah. It's a brilliant reimagining of the Joker character. I have to give it to you. But
even all that stuff aside, yeah, take all that influence from Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, and even, like all that aside, I mean, I think his performance was definitely something unique that he brought to that role.
Oh yeah. And I mean, really, out of all of the movies that I had seen, I'd be hard pressed to say, okay, well, somebody else should have got it. Mm-hmm. Because he was that good. Yeah.
So now we have two comic book movies that have won a best acting Oscar, and both of them were for the Joker.
Yeah, which says something right there. Actually, It does.
Yeah. So I don't know, something about that character brings out like kind of. Well, in some actors, we're not going to talk about certain ones who were in certain movies and with a few too many tattoos.
Oh Lord.
But
and
also,
let me say something.
Go ahead.
Okay, real quick about that. Jared Leto, because he catches a lot of shit. I mean, for his interpretation of the Joker. And just let me say that I respect him as a creative artist to go where he wants to go, because that's what an actor does. They take a character and they put their own spin on it, which I heartily approve of, because when we see something like the Superman Returns fiasco, where Brandon Routh had to be forced to play Christopher Reeve, and he wasn't, able to play Superman his way, and then when we see him years later in the the Crisis thing, and we saw what we could have had.
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that different actors want to put their different spin on the character. That being said, I firmly believe that when you go too far away from the core concept of what the character is supposed to be, you've created a new character. And to me, that's what Jared Leto did.
Well, also, I think part of the problem, too, is I think he got too wrapped up in, and we can talk about this when we get around to Suicide Squad, but just in general, I think he got way too wrapped up in the publicity about his method acting stunts, and he seemed to care more about that than, instead of sending used condoms to Margot Robbie, maybe he should have tried reading a few more of the comic books.
Exactly. He got too, which is something, unfortunately, is something that has infected our society. He got too caught up in the whole social media aspect of it. Yeah. And I think that he was wrapped up, as you accurately said, trying to create social media buzz.
Right.
Instead of, as you say, getting a whole stack of comic books and just sitting down and just reading the comic books and say, oh, okay, well, this is what I'm supposed to be playing. Okay.
Yeah. And that being said, the Morbius trailer came out a few weeks ago, and he looks pretty good in that. So, fingers crossed.
Well, I think that he took a lesson from the backlash he got from Suicide Squad. And he said, because, I saw the trailer, and I'm not as big a Morbius fan as some other people are, but from what I remember, he looks, pretty accurate. I mean, to me.
Yeah, same here.
And he seems to have dialed it way back.
Right. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention, Batman related, was we saw the first look at Matt Reeves, the suit that Robert Pattinson's going to be wearing.
Yeah, wow. And, it took me by surprise, man.
Yeah, and you know what? It's this very, the suit itself has got this very heavily armored look, and I didn't realize this until Mike McGee pointed this out on Twitter, that the cowl is kind of like more of an old-fashioned cowl from the comics, which was kind of like an interesting mix of the different eras. So it's kind of got part of the old comics influence, and also part of the Arkham Knight, from the video games influence.
Well, again, we see what we've said so many times. So, you know what? People need to wait until they actually see something before they lose their shit and start complaining about it. Because I remember when the guy was announced that he was going to be playing back. Oh, boy. Twitter and Facebook lost their collective minds. Oh, this guy can't do it. Now, all of a sudden, now that they done seen him, everybody's talking about, oh, well, I can't wait to see the movie now. I can't wait to see the movie.
I mean, just because he was in the damn Twilight movies doesn't mean he can't act.
Well, this is what I'm saying, and that's what I was saying to other people. Wait and Wait and give the guy a chance. Let's wait until we actually see something.
Plus, let's not forget, Mr. Mom made a pretty convincing Batman to begin with, and people lost their shit over that.
Bingo. I mean, if there had been the internet back then, forget about it. People were sending telegrams to Warner Brothers.
Oh my God! You'd think the internet did exist back then. People took the time to write letters about this. Newspapers had editorial op-ed pieces about it. Mm-hmm. That's how controversial it was. Yeah, that's how controversial it was. And it's also so this new movie too. It's going to feature just one last thing, which it's going to feature Zoe Kravitz playing Catwoman, and I just saw her in Hulu did this TV version of High Fidelity, and I just
really?
Yeah, okay. And it's so they gender swap the characters. So Zoe Kravitz is playing John Cusack's character.
Okay.
And they changed the location, so instead of Chicago, it's set in your stomping grounds in Brooklyn. And
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I just finished watching it last night, and it's it's different. It's a little bit different from the movie, but it's got a lot of the same vibe of it. And she especially is great in it. Like, just watching her in this, it makes me all the more excited to see her play Catwoman.
Yeah, well, she was in it was a movie that you didn't like, but I thought that she was good in it. X-Men First Class.
She was in First Class. Well, she was kind of like in the background of First Class.
Yeah, but she was good in it. But
she was, yeah.
And she's been in a couple of other things, and she's like one of those actresses, like you said, she's in the background and she doesn't like stand, but everything that she's been in, she's good.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't point at her performance and say, okay, well, she sucks. I can't do that. Yeah, so I'm looking for, but yeah, people say, Robert Pattinson, and I said, yeah. So what about? But didn't you see Twilight? I said, yeah, kinda, sorta. I didn't pay much attention. You know why? Because I wasn't the audience for that movie, right. Which is something a lot of people don't understand. They go see. Okay, if you're a middle-aged person, a middle-aged black man like me, from Brooklyn, the Twilight movies, I'm not the audience for them.
Plus, he did those strategically. Like, he didn't even like the movies or the scripts, but he did them because he knew that would give him a stepping stone to take on bigger projects. And he was right, and he's done a lot more. Like, he's done some pretty character-intensive, pieces since then.
Which is something else that we've also discussed here, that a lot of these quote unquote fans don't understand, that these actors, they're not as in love with the property as you are. They're looking at it from a business standpoint. Okay, well, I'll do this movie because it's going to enable me to do 2 or 3 other movies that I really want to do. I'll have the financial security to do, these little, these independent movies, these little personal projects. That's a lot. That's the reason why a lot of these actors take these big budget blockbuster superhero CGI movies, because there's other
directors
stuff they
too.
Do.
Christopher Nolan only made the Batman trilogy because he wanted to get bigger budgets for his own movies.
Exactly.
The only reason that Christopher Nolan was able to make Inception was because he promised Warner Brothers that he'd do Dark Knight Rises after it.
Yeah. These people are not as in love with these properties as they are. So, yeah. So I remember vaguely seeing a couple of the Twilight movies, but they didn't make an impression on me because, as I said, all movies, despite what people think now, and I don't know where this came from in the movie-going consciousness, that everybody thinks that every movie they go see is supposed to be made for them, and they're supposed to love it. No, it's not. Not every movie is made for you, and you're not supposed to love every movie because the filmmaker did not make it for you. Filmmakers don't make movies for everybody.
Right. Well, that's actually a good segue into today's movie, because this was a movie that was made specifically for black kids. And when you look at it through that lens, it takes on a completely different view. So, but before we get into that, this choice came from your suggestion that we do a series of movies on on black superheroes to honor Black History Month. And even though we've only got one of these episodes coming out in February, Black History Month should really be longer than the shortest month of the year anyway, so we're going to go beyond that.
Oh, okay. I'm cool.
So you chose the first one. Everybody says that, when Black Panther came out, everybody said that it was the first black superhero movie. And other people said, no, it wasn't. Blade was the first black superhero movie. And they were all wrong, because the first black superhero movie is actually a little-known 1970s blaxploitation film called Abar the Black Superman.
Oh, yeah. I knew you were going to bring that up.
Have you seen that?
I have seen it, and as a matter of fact, I want to watch it again because I think that we should get around to discussing that movie at some time. But I have seen it.
Mm-hmm. But the first mass-produced black superhero film was this film, The Meteor Man.
Yep, written and directed by Robert Townsend.
Exactly, yeah. And his whole thing behind making this movie was he said that he went to visit his nephew. I think it was his nephew or something like that. And he asked his nephew, what are you going to do for Halloween? Do you want to be Superman or do you want to be Spider-Man? And his nephew said, well, I can't be because they're white. And and Townsend thought that was ridiculous. And he says. That kind of started the journey of me thinking that kids of color need their own superhero.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, you know what? I had heard that story years ago, but I had forgotten it, and I didn't remember it until you just, related it. And it goes back to when I saw this movie originally during its original theatrical run, as a matter of fact. I was working in Manhattan. It was 1993. Yeah, I was working in Manhattan at the time. And I caught it one night after work. And I went to see it. And I remember leaving out of the theater because I was really pissed off about the movie. Because, this is what happened. By 1993, we'd already had a couple of superhero movies. Of course, we had Superman the movie, we had Batman movies and stuff like that. And, these were real serious, artistic efforts to present superheroes, in a classic light that, people could be proud of and everything like that. And we got Meteor Man, which to me was a comedy, and I was focusing so much on the comedic elements that I totally overlooked the overarching message that Robert Townsend was trying to present. And when I saw it yesterday, after all of these years, and I saw it with a little bit of maturity and not so much arrogance, and I was able to look at I see what Townsend was trying to do with this movie. And I've done this movie a disservice over the years because it's a very, very good movie. It's excellent, as a matter of fact. In fact, I was surprised at how fresh this movie seemed.
Yeah, that stood out to me too, because when you're thinking about a lot of the stuff that they were tackling in, say, Luke Cage, or that they're tackling in Black Lightning, a lot of those same issues they're cropping up in Meteor Man.
Okay, bingo. You hit it right on the head, my friend. That's exactly what I was thinking of when I saw it. Oh, shit. There's a lot of that same vibe that's going on here. And like I said, the overarching thing of what Robert Townsend tried, sure, there's comedic elements that's in it. But even the comedic elements serve to underline a lot of the conventional superhero themes. Like in this movie, one of the things that cracked me up about it was that Meteor Man shows, in a way that no other superhero movie does, why a superhero needs a secret identity.
Yeah.
Because it's like the whole neighborhood gets in on the whole Meteor Man thing. and all it does is just make things more difficult for the Robert Townsend character.
Also, I just really liked kind of how everyone else is like the whole kind of reverse. There's a lot of reversal of the secret identity thing, because in most superhero stories, he keeps his identity secret from everybody. You know, if his wife or his family finds out about it, they're concerned about him. They're worried if he should be doing this. But in this one, it's his parents who are pushing him to become the superhero.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, they're overjoyed that he's got superpowers. The father's saying, yeah, well, you're going to get this crack house, and then after that, you're going to get the drug dealers, and then after that, you're going to get the number runners. And, then you're gonna, and he's looking around. He said, wait a minute, I don't. And his mother, she's busy making a costume for him, which, before we go any further, I want to point out that his parents is played by Robert Guillaume, who most people would remember from Benson, and Marla Gibbs, who most people remember as the maid from the Jeffersons. Right. And I mean, just let me run down this cast real quick, because
there's so many. This is like a who's cast.
This is an all-star cast. You could not get all these people in one movie today.
Yeah.
You have Eddie Griffin, James Earl Jones, Nancy Wilson, Jennifer Lewis, Robert Guillaume, and Marla Gibbs, who I mentioned, Don Cheadle, Wallace Shawn, Bill Cosby, Big Daddy Kane, Biz Markie, Frank Gorshin.
Yeah, Frank Gorshin. That was
Sinbad.
Sinbad in like this in such a small role too.
But hilarious. He comes in and he does this little crazy bit, and it's got nothing to do with the movie, but it's funny as hell, so you don't care.
Yeah.
Luther Vandross playing a hitman of all things. And to put the icing on the cake, the costume designer for this movie is Ruth Carter, who won the Academy Award for costume design for the overall look period of Black Panther.
Oh, really? Okay.
So this movie, I mean, like I said, you couldn't put this cast together in a movie now.
Oh, did you mention Tiny Lister?
Yeah, Tiny Lister.
Yeah.
So, see what I mean? That's how large this cast is that this. So I knew I was going to forget somebody.
Yeah, Cypress Hill was in it too. They played the Crips.
Yeah, see, there we go. Cypress Hill. Matter of fact, there was a couple of R&B groups.
I'm not sure if you meant John Witherspoon.
Yeah, John Witherspoon.
Who I remember him from the Wayans Brothers TV show.
Yeah, and the Friday he was in those movies.
Oh my God! Like pretty much almost everybody, like so many people in this cast, then went on to do the Friday movies.
Yeah. And, John Witherspoon and Tiny Lister. They were
Chris Tucker had he was the MC in the mall.
That was Chris Tucker?
That was Chris Tucker. Yeah.
You see what I mean? That's how packed this movie is with such talent that I just knew, and I even wrote it down while I was watching the movie, and I said, okay, I know that guy. Oh, wow, he's in this movie. Matter of fact, people that I completely forgotten was in this movie, because as I said, I haven't seen it since 1990. Really, I haven't seen it since 1993.
Same here, yeah, because I saw it when it hit the Blockbuster, and because I remember I had comics at the time, and I remember there were so many ads for this thing in like all the comics I was reading. In fact, Marvel even did a tie-in series where Meteor Man was in the Marvel universe. He had crossovers with Spider-Man and Night Thrasher, and it was only like 6 issues. But yeah, he was in the Marvel universe for a time.
Well, you know what? This does feel like a Marvel movie. Mm-hmm. Well, I was watching it, and I said, yeah, you know what? I could easily see this taking place in the MCU.
Also, just another thing about Tiny Lister, that guy has got the most ironic nickname of all time.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the guy's massive.
Yeah, he was a professional wrestler at one time,
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they called him Zeus. He was in the WWE. That was back in the day when, guys like Hulk Hogan... Mm-hmm. And Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper, when they were popular, and he had a career as a professional wrestler. As a matter of fact, he was in a movie with Hulk Hogan, where he played the Zeus character.
Oh, okay. And Faison Love, who would go on to co-star in The Parenthood with Townsend, was in this as well.
Yeah, he's the guy when Robert Townsend, that's when he discovers that he can fly.
Right.
And he's mistaken for a peeping Tom.
I did not recognize Faison Love until I saw his name prop up in the credits.
Yeah, same here. I did not recognize him either until, so I mean, yeah, I mean, this movie is worth watching if for no other reason that you get to see an extraordinary amount of talented people before they hit it big.
And,
like I
gotta wonder, it's like, does Don Cheadle have like a withered old painting in his attic? Because he has not changed in over 20 years.
Oh my God, he looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
That's how come he was like one of the first people that I recognized because he hasn't changed. I was like, oh my God, that's Don Cheadle. What's he doing in here? Yeah.
And although in retrospect, I think making Bill Cosby, giving Bill Cosby the superpower to see through walls is a little bit creepy.
Yeah, it's a little bit creepy. And let me put a little thing here for you folks, because I know there's going to be some people out there that's going to listen to this and it's like, why are you giving airtime to Bill? Why are you talking about Bill Cosby was in that movie? Wait a minute. Bill Cosby is a small part in this movie.
He doesn't even say a single line.
Thank you. And I'm not going to throw a whole movie made by a whole bunch of talented people on the trash heap because Bill Cosby is in it for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. And plus, you got to remember that this movie was made at a time when Bill Cosby was like America's father. Like nobody knew any of the shit he was up to back then. So, you got to put these things in the proper historical context. Like I'm positive if Townsend knew what Cosby was up to, he would not have cast him in this movie.
Well, this is what I always say to people when they go on and on about that. I said, listen, you have to put things in the historical context.
Right.
You can't just say, you're looking at it now and you say, oh, well, people should have did this and people should have did that. Well, you know what? First of all, there's a lot of things in Hollywood that were going on that were like an open secret, but nobody knew about, especially because they didn't have the internet back then.
Right.
And, they didn't have TMZ and Twitter. So a lot of things were going on, but people had no way of knowing if they actually were true or not.
Exactly.
So again, back then, now, as you so accurately pointed out, I don't know if Townsend knew or if anybody know, but from everything I've read about him, I'm pretty sure that if he had known, he wouldn't have had Bill Cosby in the movie.
Yeah.
But then again, like you said, at that time, Bill Cosby was America's dad.
Right.
So having said that, if for those of you who are listening, if you still have if you think I'm full of shit and everything like that, then you are free to turn this off and go listen to another podcast.
Now, something about this movie, I also noticed there seemed to be some parallels with Black Lightning. Mentioning him, because you got the main character who's a teacher named Jefferson, no less, in both versions. So, I mean, apparently Townsend said that he named the character after one of his idols, who was one of his teachers. But still, like that's a kind of I'm not sure if it's 100% coincidence or not, but it's kind of a neat little parallel.
Well, I think what he wanted to do was that he wanted to have a teacher as the main character because of not only the interaction that he has with the children, and then he shows his relationship with them. But teachers tend to get kind of denigrated in this country.
Oh, yeah.
So it is refreshing to see a movie that does have a teacher as a main character, and a teacher who is in real life a superhero, as well as when he puts on the costume and he goes out and he becomes a superhero. So I think that was to me, that was the comment that he was trying to make, that teachers are superheroes, which I approve of. Like I said, I'm looking at this now and looking at all of the subliminal messages that he put in there, and I have to believe that that's one of them.
Yeah. Also, he doesn't fit like any sort of stereotypes you would have of black men. Like he's very non-confrontational. He's very much keeps to himself type of thing. So this movie's breaking a lot of stereotypes that existed at the time and still exist to this day.
Yeah, he's not a macho type of guy at all. Like, as a matter of fact, that's a large part of the character arc in this, is that he learns how to stand up for himself without being confrontational.
Right.
Which is something that his character, stays away from, early on in the movie when he runs into Don Cheadle, who is one of the big bosses of this gang called the Golden Lords.
Yeah, and his character's name is Goldilocks.
Yeah, they got a terrific look. They wear these seriously sharp black outfits, and they all had their hair dyed blonde.
You know what I kept thinking was these guys have watched Demolition Man one too many times. yeah, exactly. That's where they took the cue from. Oh, but yeah, because that's what they look like. They look like, I kept expecting Wesley Snipes to show up. I'm just kind of surprised he wasn't in this.
And they have like the adults who are the Golden Lords, and then they have like the junior high school age
and
the
elementary school baby lords.
And then the elementary baby lords. It's like these little 2-foot high midgets running around with blonde hair and these, badass black leather outfits. Oh my God!
I mean, the scene when they confront Jefferson at night, and it's like all the baby lords come out of the darkness, and he looks like he's about to shit his pants. It's just hilarious.
Yeah. Oh my God, they're a bunch of munchkins, and one of them has a tiger on a chain, and it's just crazy. And you know what? I love how it's never explained why the leader of the Golden Lords has a tiger. He just does. Yeah, and it's just hanging out in the background, like it just not even chained up or anything. Yeah, it's always in the background, and I love when movies don't take the time to explain everything. Sometimes you just got to go with it. And you say, well, why does he have a tiger? He just does. The guy just likes to tiger. Why did Tony Montana have a tiger?
And I love that they got Frank Gorshin to play like the head gang lord of all these gangs.
Again, I have to believe that was intentional because
it was, and I found this article here, and Robert Townsend said that he was so happy he could get Frank Gorshin because the Batman TV show was such a big part of him growing up.
Yeah, and you have a part where the whole neighborhood, they're telling Jefferson, okay, well, we want you to do this, we want you to do that, we want you to do this. Oh, and by the way, we're going to put a phone in your house, just like in that TV show, so when we have an emergency, we can call you.
Yeah, I love all the little callbacks to that. And then his mom's reading comic books to try and get influence for the superhero costume, and she's reading Iron Man at one point. She tries to give him a suit of armor.
Yeah, oh my God. Yeah, but if you notice, and it's funny that you see a lot of the other characters in this movie reading comic books, except for Jefferson. Yeah. You never see him reading comic books. Like Eddie Griffin, we see him reading comic books. You see the kids reading comic books. Right at the beginning of the movie, there's a kid that he bumps into and he drops a comic book. Right. So again, that's another little thing that's put in there. I think to try to give us the impression that Jefferson didn't grow up reading comic books, and he's really not all that familiar with the whole superhero thing, which is why he's not comfortable with it. Right. Because one of the things that cracked me up was that they put in that, okay, he learns how to fly, but he's scared of heights. So he only flies about 5 feet above the ground.
I love that. The first time he flies out in the costume, they go to the window, they're looking up in the sky, like, where is he? They look down and they see him, he's just flying, he's not even up above the cars. No, he's like entire length, and he just waves to them and he starts flying around, and they're like, when is he going to get over his fear of heights?
And I really think that they passed up a bet at the end of the movie because to me, first of all, the movie ends way too abruptly. It just bam,
there's a reason for that because there was an ending that they had. There was another ending for it, and apparently in this other ending, the original ending had it showed Jeff more confident, standing up, and and as a teacher, using his role as a teacher to be to better people's lives. And then Michael, his best friend, played by Eddie Griffin, comes to him and says that there's an even bigger piece of the meteor found in Arizona. So they agree to buy plane tickets so that Jeff can get his powers and become Meteor Man again. And then it ends, and then as the credits come up, Michael's trying to talk him into letting him take some of the power and be his sidekick and throwing out names like Comet Boy and Chocolate Thunder.
Eddie Griffin as a superhero. Yeah, okay. Because as a matter of fact, in one part of the movie, he does actually steal the costume, but that's only so he can beat chicks.
Right, because he wants to get he wants to be interviewed by the reporter he's got a crush on.
Yeah. Who's played by Beverly Johnson, I believe.
Okay. That name
the
sounds...
model,
That's why. I was trying to remember where I remember that name from.
Yeah, Beverly, she was, at that time, she was a pretty famous, black model.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like I said, okay, again, another famous person that's in this movie that you look and you say, wow,
Oh, wait, no, Beverly Johnson was the doctor.
She was the doctor.
That's what it says here in the credit list.
Okay.
Janice Farrell, the reporter was Charlene Woodard.
Charlene Woodard. Okay. Now see some black folks that are listening to, they're nodding their heads because we know because she wasn't like a big movie star, but she was fairly well known at that time. Yeah. But I knew Beverly Johnson was in there because when I saw her, I said, wait a minute, I know her. And then when I saw the credit, Beverly Johnson, I said, okay, her.
Now that thing about the ending, because there was a lot of scenes, because this movie was apparently going through a lot of rewrites, and there are a lot of moments in this movie that feel like they don't quite fit together, and that's because of all the rewrites. There were some plot holes that developed. So, for example, the fear of heights thing. He's flying around low on the ground. And without explanation, suddenly he's up at the top floor of an apartment building, stopping these guys and then flying away with no problem. But then the next scene, he's still patrolling, flying above the ground.
Yeah, because they're taking the TVs out of this house, and he turns on the TV with telekinesis. Right. Because he's got a whole range of superpowers that comes from the meteor, which we should say he's called the Meteor Man because it's a green meteor that comes to Washington D.C. And I get the impression because I think that it's an actual life form.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it's made out of rock, simply because when it hits him, it's absorbed into his body. Mm-hmm. And actually, that's a pretty scary scene.
I was surprised rewatching this movie because it's kind of graphic. Oh my God, I forgot that. And it hits, and he's pinned up against the wall and he's screaming. And he's really screaming. Right. And then he's in the hospital and he's got 3rd-degree burns, they say.
Yeah, he's horribly burned. Yeah, and the meteor. Well, there's a shot after the meteor because it oozes into his body, like I said, as if it's a life form. And then he's on the ground, and we see a pair of feet. We find out later that they belong to Bill Cosby, who picks up a chunk of the meteor that apparently didn't get absorbed. Yeah. Into Jefferson's body, but he's laying there, and it's a brief shot, but it's enough that we can see Jefferson's horribly burned. Yeah. By this. So when he wakes up in the hospital. He has no burns, and he finds out that he's got X-ray vision. He's got, of course, super strength and vulnerability, flight, laser vision, but he's also got telekinesis. Right. He can touch any.
He touches something, he absorbs all that information for 30 seconds. Right. He uses it in a way. As a teacher myself, he uses it in a way that every teacher wishes they had. Because when he's grading these papers, he just touches them, writes the grade on top.
Yeah, I caught that. That was good. And I guess because now that I'm older, again, I go back to that, sorry folks, but that's just how it is. I guess I appreciate the humor of what he was doing, because there's a scene of violence where Jefferson gets gunned down by the Golden Lords. That is almost like Sam Peckinpah, directed that thing, because, wow, you see the impact of the bullets and he's jerking around and, he's in front of a newsstand. There's papers magazines being shredded and stuff like that. So there are some scenes of violence and some serious stuff, but then he tempers that with humor, and
actually the film originally got a PG-13 rating, and then Townsend had to appeal it and eventually got it down to a PG rating.
Oh, okay.
So that doesn't surprise me at all, because with the level of violence in it, and also like we were saying, the scene of him getting badly burned, I guarantee you those were probably two of the reasons why they gave it a higher rating.
Yeah, yeah. Because like I said, that scene really took me by surprise. Like I said, I have not seen this movie since 1990, and I completely forgotten that scene. And when I saw it, I sat up a little bit straighter in my seat. I said, "Oh my God!" You know. So then he comes out of the, and then he leaves the hospital, and then the rest of the movie is basically about him. His neighbors, of course, find out that he's got superpowers, and he gets into the conflict with the Golden Lords and everything like that. But the whole thing about the movie that I really liked was that I think that when you get to the end of the movie, what it's about actually is about showing how, he's a superhero and everything like that, but a superhero really can't save a neighborhood or a community. It's got to be the people together working in the neighborhood. Because at the end of the movie, everybody, even the Bloods and the Crips.
Right, yeah. Played by Cypress Hill and Naughty by Nature.
Yeah.
Something else about this is, because you can tell that there were subplots that were dropped, and there's some remnants of it. So, he mentions early in the movie when him and Michael are talking, and Michael's telling him, you got to get over Stacy. It's been like a year or whatever. And then later, he goes up to this other teacher in the break room, and I double checked, and it turns out her name is Stacy. That's his ex-girlfriend, and that's when Sinbad's character comes in, who plays like this overnight black nationalist type. Because before he says like, "It's my first black girlfriend."
Oh, that was so funny.
But he's just in those two scenes, and because it's Sinbad, and Sinbad was he was a pretty big deal at the time. It makes me wonder if there was this whole other subplot of a love triangle between Jeff and Malik, or Bernard, as his real name is, and Stacy.
His slave name.
So I think there was some love triangle subplot in there that got cut out.
Yeah, because like you was saying earlier, which I believe the point you were trying to make before I so rudely cut you off.
Oh, no problem at all.
When he's on the rooftop and he stops the burglars from stealing them, he does this backflip into the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wait a minute. When did he get over his fear of heights?
Yeah.
Which to me, like if I were going to end the movie, I would have had him doing it like flying over Washington, D.C. to show that he has indeed, gotten over his fear of heights, and he's embraced being the Meteor Man.
Absolutely.
Because like I said, the ending, it just like bam. And I said, wow, wait a minute. That's kind of abrupt, but again, I didn't make the movie, and it is what it is, It didn't spoil it for me, but, I just wanted like something like, what's the best? Oh, like the flyby,
Right, the Superman flyby,
yeah.
Well, that's a nice point too, because the opening credits, it's totally 1978 Superman in those opening credits.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You can tell that's what it was. It's not a straight knockoff, but it's close enough to invoke that same spirit. You look at it, and if you've seen Superman the movie, you say, "Okay, I know what they're doing."
Exactly, yeah.
Which is I prefer to call it a homage. People will. People are way too fast. Oh, that's a ripoff. That's a ripoff. That's a ripoff. Which 90% of people that say that have no idea what a ripoff actually is.
The difference, here's the, I can't remember who said this one time, but someone said is, if you tell people where it came from, it's an homage.
Okay, yeah.
And he's not trying to hide the fact. Everybody, if you're seeing Meteor Man, there is a 99.99999% chance that you have seen Superman the movie, so you know what he's doing there.
Exactly. And also, here's the thing, too. You can tell from this movie, at least I did, and like I said, if I ever see Robert Townsend, and if he's listening to this, which is not so far-fetched as you might believe in this day and age, I got to apologize to him, because I was looking at this movie yesterday, and all throughout the movie, I could see a reverence and a love for the whole superhero genre that's in this movie. You know, the guy knows his superheroes, and he knows what he was doing, and he knows what he was trying to do with this movie. And he was trying to do something other than the usual, okay, guy gets sued. I mean, this is an origin story, make no mistake, but he was trying to do a little something more than give us, guy gets superpowers, guy goes up against supervillain, guy's got to save the world. He's not saving the world in this movie. That's not what this movie is about. And you know what? It shouldn't be about that.
Yeah, and you know, there's that scene where he interrupts the gunfight between the Bloods and the Crips and the police. And he tells them, he's like, everybody, put down your guns. I just want to talk to you. I want to talk to everybody.
Yeah.
And he brings like this peace between them, so much so that at the end of the movie, when the Golden Lords attack him and all the rest of the mob comes after them, the Bloods and the Crips and the cops show up to back them up.
Yeah. Which, you know what? That is a powerful scene where they're having the shootout, and he just flies in there, and the bullets are hitting him, and he just says, put down your guns. And that's all he does. He doesn't like use super speed to take all the guns away from them. He asks them to put them down. Which in a way
it's both really uplifting and at the same time a little bit cheesy. But I like the effort that they're putting in that scene.
Yeah, and like I said, it's, you know what? It's representative of what he's trying to do with this character.
Right.
And to me, it goes back to what we're talking about in so many episodes where we're talking about the whole idea. So to me, the whole idea of superheroes is, okay, a lot of people think that the whole thing about superhero movies is that, okay, it's the superhero and he's punching out the bad guys. That's only a part of it. The part is, to me, superheroes are supposed to be inspiring.
Right.
There are characters in stories that are supposed to uplift us and inspire us and want to be better. And to me, that's what the Meteor Man character in this movie, he's inspiring people to be better than they are and want to get along and want to help each other, which is what he does.
And you know, taking this back to Superman, I mean, one of the criticisms of Superman Returns that always irritated me is they say Superman never throws a punch in the movie, and I'm like, well, go back and watch 1978 movie. He never throws a punch in that either.
No, he never throws a punch in that one. No,
and it's because the point of the movie isn't him punching things. The point of Superman isn't beating up other people. It's inspiring people.
Yeah. Which is why when people, it pisses me off when people always say, well, I don't like Superman. I can't relate to Superman. Well, that's because you're not supposed to relate to him, stupid.
Right.
You're supposed to be inspired by him. You're supposed to aspire not to be Superman in the sense that, you know, you can fly, you can jump over tall buildings and bend steel in your bare hands, but you are aspire to the morals and values that he holds. Mm-hmm. That's what Superman is about, and that's what a lot of this movie is about. The Jefferson character has a lot of morals and values, and through his, like, one of his major acts that's in the movie in that he takes this old abandoned yard. It's got like rusted cars and broken down.
Oh, now this was a scene I really liked, and I think it even worked better than the scene with him making peace between the gangs because. Go ahead. Anyway, sorry, just interrupting you.
No, go ahead. You take the ball.
So what I'm saying is, but he, like you were saying, you know, he goes to this, he cleans up all of the trash, all of these abandoned cars and, you know, all of this junk from this field, and he creates a community garden with his powers, and we're talking like not a regular garden. We're talking like giant apples and pumpkins and shit.
Right, exactly. Now, again, he gets superpowers and the whole community, okay, their whole thing is that they want him to start punching out people. Well, we want you to bust up the crack houses and get rid of the prostitutes and that. But his concern is to feed people.
Right.
That's his first major act.
His first thing is he wants to protect the neighborhood, and that's what he's doing in a different kind of way. And I love that scene because, Yeah, a guy who has superpowers who wants to protect his community. What better way to do it? Not by just, punching people, but by using the powers in a way that would benefit the whole community.
Yeah, exactly. That, to me, that's the whole hook right there. It's not, okay, well, I got to put on the costume and I got to go out and I got to fight crime. Mm-hmm. No, he's thinking about, okay, how best can I help the community? Well, people need to eat.
Right.
First of all, so he feeds the people. To me, that's a very powerful scene. And yeah, like you said, it's not as, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to go with you. Yeah. When you put the two scenes side by side, yeah, that, to me, that's a little more powerful and more meaningful than the one where he stops the gunfight. Much as I like that scene too. Matter of fact, I like any scene that has him doing anything other than punching people, which we do get to at the end when he has the fight with the leader of the Golden Lord, who also gets superpowers.
Which is such a bizarre fight. Like, I found myself loving it and also rolling my eyes at it at the same time. Because
when they touch the book that has the runway.
Now that well, see, the thing is, he touches the book with the Bruce Lee's fighting guide, which I thought was kind of weird because I'm just like, You've got superpowers already. Like, these other guys aren't going to pose a threat to you. But he's wasting all the martial arts time fighting these guys. But then he tries to touch the book again, and he ends up grabbing the modeling book, gives it to the gang leader, and then they start doing this model off together.
Oh yeah, they start voguing and everything like that. Yeah, that's when I did the face palm and said, "Oh Lord, okay." And then I said, "Okay, that scene I remember."
Now, don't get me wrong. I was laughing my ass off during that scene, though.
Oh, I laughed too. Yeah, But you know what? Again, I guess Robert Townsend wanted to do something different rather than just the two guys with superpowers, just punching each other.
Yeah.
I think he just wanted to break it up and do something. And on that basis, because since I have been so entertained by that point, I just say, you know what, I'm just going to go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. But the powers, though, they're so vaguely defined in this movie. And again, that's another thing that was cut out, was like explaining exactly what powers he had. So like, he's doing things, he's like pulling powers out of nowhere, basically.
Well, yeah. Well, basically, this is a case of he has whatever superpower we need to keep the plot moving at this point, like in the shopping mall, where Eddie Griffin has, he's in the shopping mall, and the Golden Lords, they see him on the TV being interviewed by the reporter he wants to get a date with. So they go there to kill him because they think that he's the Meteor Man.
Right.
And Robert Townsend rushes there, and he goes and he uses, telekinesis, to save him.
Yeah.
Now, okay, we know that the Bill Cosby character, he found out he's got telekinesis because we see him making a cup of coffee for himself. But how did his character find out he had telekinesis?
Right. And also, like, it's being able to control TV signals and stuff like that. Like, it's just the powers are pretty much, like you said, it's basically the 66 Batman's utility belt. Anything he needs for the story is in that belt.
Right, exactly. After a while, it starts to remind me, like, there's a X character. You probably be more familiar with this because you're more into the X-Men than I am. But there is one character that his superpower is that his mutant power is that he cuts himself and oxygenates his blood.
Oh, Extreme.
Yeah. Now, what's his superpower now?
It's, like his... I can't, like, his blood, when he cuts himself, his blood is like turns into fire or something like that. The 90s were a weird time for comics.
Okay, now let me ask you something, because you're an intelligent man. How in the hell do you discover you have a superpower like that?
I don't know.
Okay, okay, again, bringing it back to Meteor Man. There are some abilities he has in this movie, like you said, it's like Batman's utility belt. Well, how did he find out he had, certain superpowers that he has? Okay, I understand how he figured out that he could talk to dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Because his dog is talking to him, and he's saying, "Oh wow, well I can talk to my dog," which is kind of cute. I thought that he could, because I know dog lovers like to think that they can talk to their dogs and understand their dogs, and he actually does.
It was kind of interesting because his dog can clearly understand him when he speaks English, but he's still talking to his dog by barking.
yeah, exactly. He talked to but. Like the laser vision and the telekinesis and, there was the super strength. I understand how you figured that out because the Golden Lords, they attack his father, who they've already beat. They beat him up and they put him in the hospital. So the poor man comes home and they show up again to beat him up again. They say, "Oh, you got out the hospital too soon. We got to put you back in the hospital." So Jefferson grabs two of them and just throws them across the street. And that's how he finds out he's got super strength. And okay, fine.
When they come after him for revenge, like he jumps out of the way of the car and he finds out he can fly.
Right. Okay, I got it. How do you find out you have telekinesis, though?
Yeah.
If you don't even know that you have it, If they had like a scene, like they usually do in a lot of superhero movies, where the superhero and his best friend, they're trying to figure out what powers he have. So they say, okay, well, do this and do that. And it goes back to what you were saying, that you think that there was a lot of subplots that were cut out. I get the feeling that maybe that there was a scene in there with him and Eddie Griffith, which is why I think Eddie Griffith is a science teacher.
I agree, because he comes up with the explanation about why his powers are fading.
Bingo. Yeah. So I get the feeling that there was some other scenes in there where they were, trying to figure out what it is that he could do.
Yeah, and the powers fading thing, it struck me as a little bit contrived. Like that was another thing that was used just for plot device, because he reabsorbed part of this meteor at the end, and then almost instantly he goes from being very powerful, and then coincidentally, right after all the bad guys are done, then he has the power to heal the dog. Then he loses the power to heal the dog.
Yeah, it's very inconsistent. Which to me, I think that the whole point of him absorbing the meteor meant that, he absorbed the power, so he's got it in him.
Well, and that's the thing, because Michael tells him that the meteor changed your cellular structure, so you need to rest longer to recharge. But the idea there is that if he just takes a week off and rests, then his powers would recharge. But that whole thing is dropped, and it's implied that when his powers fade, that's it, they're gone.
Yeah. And now to mention that, because there's another scene where it's the scene where, he's at the meeting and the neighborhood is all telling him, you're going to save the neighborhood. We want you to do this. We want you to do that. And the guy takes a Polaroid picture and he looks at the picture and he doesn't see Jefferson. He sees just like a green man-shaped figure dressed in his clothes there.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. Which to me kind of indicated, as I said, my theory is that the meteor was actually a life form.
That makes a lot more sense then, yeah.
That is now living inside of him. And that's what's giving him the power. It's they're living in some kind of, symbiotic, form of relationship. Mm-hmm. And the guy took the picture and he looks at it and he said, wow. And he's just seen this green man-shaped form wearing Jefferson's clothes, which to me indicated that he had absorbed it. So he couldn't lose it. He couldn't lose the powers because it's part of him now.
Right.
But again, it comes back to what we were saying earlier, the inconsistency of this movie. And the more I'm talking to you, and thank you, sir, the more I'm convinced that, there was a lot of this movie that was chopped out that would have explained some of this stuff. Yeah.
Also, like Bill Cosby's whole character in that movie, he's basically just a Deus Ex Machina. He comes in at the end just to save the day. He doesn't really do anything else. Like there's no. I remember when I was a kid watching this movie, because I watched the Cosby Show growing up. So Bill Cosby was one of the reasons why I wanted to see this movie. I'm like, oh, it's a superhero movie and Bill Cosby's in it. I want to watch this. And I was kind of disappointed that he has such a small part, and the only thing he does is he barks and commands some dogs, and then he loses the rock at the end, and that's it.
Yeah, I have to think that the only reason why he's in this movie is because Robert Townsend's, maybe he had some time off and stuff like that, and Robert Townsend asked him.
That's what I think too.
And he just stuck him in there because really, there's no real reason for him to be in this movie.
No.
His character, there's no real reason for him to be in there. Other than the fact that, okay, as you say, you go say, wow, Bill Cosby's in the movie,
I mean, not only is he in the movie, but he gets top billing. Like his picture's on the cover.
Yeah. Well, like James Earl Jones. James Earl Jones plays this goofy guy that every time we see him, he's a bald guy that's got another hairpiece. and so that's it.
Yeah. Although I did love the idea of James Earl Jones being like, this guy who's got like such this commanding, confident voice, and he's trying on different wigs and talking about getting on Soul Train.
Yeah, and he's very insecure. He's always trying to talk to women, but he's very insecure. Yeah, you're right. It's a joke that the guy with this big, powerful, commanding voice, and he's a big guy.
Yeah.
Who is, he's insecure. He's not sure of himself. But again, you get the feeling that there was a lot of people that Robert Townsend got for this movie, and because they had time and, Robert Townsend, everybody likes him and he's such a likable guy, that they just agreed to be in this movie. Like Wallace Shawn has what amounts to a cameo in this movie. That's it.
Right, yeah. I almost forgot he was in this.
Yeah. Well, I did forget about it.
Even after seeing it, just between seeing it, I saw it like 2 nights ago and now talking about it, I had forgotten he was in it.
Yeah, because he's only in it for maybe 2 minutes.
Yeah.
This is a role that he, came in, and I'm pretty sure just did in one day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
The woman that plays the principal, Nancy Wilson, the singer, she's in the movie for maybe about 5 minutes tops.
Maxine Waters cameo. She's on the cover of Jet.
Yeah. We can consider that a cameo.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of people that he got, and I have to believe that they're just in the movie because they had a couple of days in their schedule, and Robert Townsend said, "Listen, can you come down for a couple of days and do this thing and do that?" And they say, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and they did it because there's really no reason for their part. Luther Vandross is in the movie for 5. Again. He doesn't say a word through the whole movie. He just shows up and looks menacing for about 5 minutes, and that's it.
Yeah, Frank Gorshin, he just comes in and he just yells a bunch and then he's done.
Yeah. He has 3 scenes where he just comes in, he walks into a room, he yells at the people in the room and walks out.
Yeah.
And that's all he does. But he looks great matter of fact, he looks great, period.
Yeah. But yeah, there are problems with the movie. There's some, it's obviously that it was kind of patched together. But you know what? Surprisingly, I'm looking at this movie and I'm looking at the suit he's wearing, and with the exception of the weird bulging on the arms, the costume's not bad.
No, it's not. It's not. You would have to remove, like you said, those hand-looking things on his arms and legs.
Yeah, I don't mind him so much on the legs, but on the arms it looks particularly noticeable. But on the chest and on the abs, those look fine. It's got this kind of armored look to it. Which if you view it as more of an armored, sculpted type of thing, it works a lot better than if you're trying to view it as those are Robert Townsend's muscles underneath, which is I think what they were trying to do, because when Eddie Griffin wears it, it looks completely different.
Oh yeah, well Eddie Griffin is a foot shorter, so they had to make another costume for him because it's very noticeable when they stand side by side that Robert Townsend is considerably tall, who is not a tall guy by any stretch of the imagination, but excuse me, I think he's something like a foot taller than Eddie Griffin.
Yeah,
but and especially given today's technology, if I, again, Robert, if you're listening to this, or if anybody knows Robert Townsend, pass on my suggestion. I actually would take this movie, do a little tweaking of the special effects and the suit with CGI, and re-release this movie.
Yeah.
I really would re-release it, because this movie is very beloved in the Black community by people who are wiser than me, who saw what this movie actually was instead of what they wanted it to be. Because I know a lot of people tell me that when they were growing up, they saw this movie and they fell in love with it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when they had kids, they passed it on to their kids, you know, and let the, you know, and say, oh, well, you got to watch this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the whole thing. He was trying to do this movie because he wanted to do... So there's this great article that I think we probably shared it in the group at some point, but it's from Shadow and Act, and it's Robert Townsend's The Meteor Man is a valuable outlier in the superhero genre. And at the end of the article, there's this little bit where... James Pappas, who's an associate professor of transnational studies at the University of Buffalo, he says that he doesn't believe superhero films are efficient tools for solving the issues that confront Black society. Because the idea of a Black mythic hero translates into a cathartic to replace the real heroes who are hardworking African Americans. What we need is exposure to real people with real stories. But what Townsend said to this is, you know, we have to teach the kids at a very young age what it means to get involved, what it means to fight back, what it means to have a voice. You can't always hit them over the head. You can't have kids who are 7 years old watching a Black Panther documentary. So you educate, and, you know, obviously not the superhero, but the political group. So you educate them with a little honey and sugar. We have a role, so who is to look and say, this is the only way? And he's like, when you make a movie, you use what you have at the time, and there's only so much knowledge that you know or you think you know, and I just accept that adventure. And, you know, and he did a really good job with this movie. I mean, he's bringing a very positive message to Black kids with this movie. And like we said, you know, this is clearly a movie that's meant for kids. Like, when you look at it through that lens, you understand a lot of things. Like that fight we were talking about at the end where they're voguing and everything, or when he ties up the kids with their pants and all that kind of stuff. Like,
yeah,
like if that were a superhero movie made for a more general audience, like one of the MCU movies or something like that, we'd be rolling our eyes at it, and rightfully so. But in a kids movie, you can get away with that kind of stuff a lot easier.
Right, exactly. And you have stuff like at the end of the movie when, you know, Jefferson, he's having a fight with the Golden Lords, and the whole neighborhood is coming together in various ways, and they have the James Earl Jones character. He takes off the wig, and he uses one records, and it's been established that his apartment is basically a warehouse for, you know, albums and stuff like that, because Jefferson says, well, I'll trade you so-and-so for this and that. And he says, no. He said, listen, I'd rather cut off my left hand.
Yeah. His record collection is priceless, which... like, part of me was like cringing when he was throwing the records. I'm like, dude, no. But on the other side, I understand what they're trying to do with that. He's using he's willing to give up the most important thing he has to stand up for his neighborhood. Right,
exactly. Which is a powerful... Again, we go back to the point of messages. There's messages all in this movie, but Robert Townsend, like you so accurately point out, he's not beating you over the head with them. You know, so we see that, that he stopped wearing these wigs because he's ready to be himself and to use, like you said, his most treasured possessions. He's willing to give it up to, you know, preserve his neighborhood and help out his community and, you know, save his people. And the people come running out of their houses. A woman comes out. She's got two skillets, not just one. She's got two. And they've got brooms and everything. And Bill Cosby, he sicks the dogs on them and everything like that.
One lady, she's throwing potatoes from her apartment window.
It's a movie about neighborhoods coming together, and you know, all of the people that live in their community. Again, they're no longer relying on this one man to save them. Right, they're saving themselves.
Right, which is something he brings up when they're talking about. They're basically scapegoating him for for the Golden Lords, retaliating, and never acknowledging the fact that they were the ones who pushed him into this in the first place. But to his credit, when Jeff calls them out on this, he says, look, I'll leave. I didn't want to cause any trouble in the community. I'm sorry all this happened. He never blames them, right? He just says, it's like, I'm disappointed that you're not standing up.
And if I can pontificate for a minute, just go back and touch on something that you said when you were talking about, we're talking about messages and stuff like that. And you were quoting that professor that was saying, well, black people don't need superheroes. But there's a thing that we got in the black community. I'm going to catch you for this, but.
No, go for it.
We're a little bit too obsessed with forcing reality down the throat of our children. Mm-hmm. We are. And I get this a lot because I will talk to people and I'll tell them I'm a writer and everything like that. And, they ask me, well, what do you write? And I say, oh, God, here it goes. And I tell them what I write. And then they say, well, that's really nice, but why don't you write something educational? Mm-hmm. That's what our kids need education. They don't need that. There's too much fantasy stuff in this world anyway. They need something educational. Children need a healthy fantasy life. Black children especially, even more than white children, need a healthy fantasy life.
Well, I mean, you think about one of the reasons that white privilege even exists, one of the reasons that, white people, like white men especially, have more confidence than probably any other group is because we grow up with all these heroes who are white.
And who don't lose. Right?
And so,
yeah,
a white guy can see himself being Batman, can see himself being Superman, can see himself being Spider-Man. So he can see himself being all these superheroes. So of course it's a small jump to go from that to say, well, of course I can be a lawyer. Of course I can be a doctor.
Exactly my point, which is what, listen, my whole writing career is based on the fact that when I was a kid, I watched James Bond movies, with my father, and I watched, all of these, great cowboy characters and, like Hopalong Cassidy and, who else? The guy with the mask, the Lone Ranger. And I asked my father, I said, well, how come there isn't a black James Bond? How come there isn't a black Lone Ranger? And my father said, well, when you get to be a writer, he said, you just have to write one. Mm-hmm. It's just that simple. Because I wondered why I couldn't go to the movies and see a black James Bond. Not that I got anything against white James Bond people. I love James Bond, as Perry knows. As anybody knows me, I love him. But to me, inflicting reality on kids 24 hours a day. I know better than a lot of people that it's a hard world and you have to learn how to live in a hard world. But having a healthy fantasy life, helps you to deal with that world.
Right. And also, kids, one of the ways kids learn is through creativity, is through imagination. Like that's part of their development process. So if you're like Townsend said, you can't sit a bunch of 7-year-olds down and make them watch a documentary about the Black Panther movement. They're not going to sit still for that. They're not going to understand what the hell's going on. But you give them a black superhero, then they're going to feel inspired seeing someone who looks like them. When Halloween comes around, they're going to be excited to be able to dress up as the Falcon or dress up as Black Panther or dress up as Meteor Man.
Yeah, exactly. Because, they got their little white friends, and on Halloween, they're dressing up as Superman, and they're dressing up as Wonder Woman. And you will have people out there that say, well, they can dress up like Superman too. Folks, you're missing the point if you say that. I understand what people mean when they say it. They mean well. I understand. I get it. But you're missing the point.
Well, you've heard about this this black cosplayer who cosplays as Batman, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know this, I'm sorry, I can't remember the gentleman's name. So if anyone knows it, please go ahead and post it in the group. But so he's a he's a black cosplayer, and he loves to cosplay Batman. Batman's his favorite character, and he goes all out. Like, this is like a professionally designed costume. And
yeah, I've seen pictures of him.
Yeah. And
I don't remember his name either, but I know who you're talking about.
Right, and he tells this story about how when he goes to conventions, and he has these little black kids who come up to him, and they're like, "Are you really Batman?" And they're like, "Is Batman really black?" And he's like, "Of course Batman can be black." And these kids are so moved by that and so inspired by that. And, you know, you can't imagine, like, how important that is. So not only, yeah, of course, you know, black kids should be able to dress up as their favorite superheroes, even if that superhero is white. But that's not the point. It's like you said, like, having that experience, seeing those characters up on the screen, and then being able to dress up like those characters, feeling like they're one of you, like that's enormous for a kid's self-confidence.
And let me clarify something that a lot of people always take me to task for whenever this type of conversation come up, when they say, "Oh, well, Batman should be black." And I said, "Yeah, absolutely, Batman. Yeah, Batman can be black." Okay, well, a black Bruce Wayne is. I said, put the brakes on. No black Bruce Wayne. Well, how come Bruce Wayne can't be black? Because he's Bruce Wayne. You can have a black man and he becomes Batman. He takes over the Batman identity, because that's a different thing. But Bruce Wayne is his own character. Just saying Bruce Wayne, just giving him a tan and saying, okay, Bruce Wayne now is black.
Well, also, it doesn't work for, like, Mark Bernardin, who co-hosts Fat Man Beyond with Kevin Smith. You know, he's a black writer. He's the one who came in an indirect way came up with the idea of Miles Morales, because he wrote this article when they were going to reboot the Spider-Man movies with Amazing Spider-Man. He wrote this article saying that there's no reason why Spider-Man can't be black, because he's a middle-class kid from Queens. You know, in fact, his parents are dead. He's being raised by his aunt and uncle, and in fact, you know, these days that story is probably more similar to a lot of black people than it is to a lot of white people who live in Queens. So he wrote this article about that, and someone said to him, "Well, what about Batman?" He said, "No, it doesn't work for Batman. It doesn't work for Bruce Wayne, because Bruce Wayne is the product of several generations of accumulated wealth."
You're right,
and it's like he's the symbol of, you know, inherited wealth in America, and you can't. That, sad to say, but that story doesn't work as well with a black man.
Well, not with a black Bruce Wayne.
Right, with a black Bruce Wayne. That's what I was saying specifically.
Right. Yeah.
But you're right. If you have another, like, several years back, Stan Lee was released from, like, his exclusivity with Marvel, and so DC went to him and they said, "How would you like to do some DC work?" And so they gave him this line of, like, one shots. It was called "Just Imagine Stan Lee creating X DC hero." So he did a Batman one.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and his Batman was a black guy.
Yeah.
But it wasn't Bruce Wayne. His name was I can't remember what his name was, but Wayne was actually his first name. But it was a whole different backstory to the character than what the Bruce Wayne story was.
Right, exactly. I mean, one of the things about Spider-Man, going back to one of the appeals of Spider-Man, and I'm not a huge Spider-Man fan, but this is one of the major things that I always loved about Spider-Man. Because Spider-Man had that full body costume and you couldn't tell what he was such a New York hero, because every New Yorker could imagine that was him under that mask. So if you were an Asian kid, you could imagine Spider-Man was Asian. If you were Puerto Rican, you could imagine Spider-Man was Puerto Rican, because you didn't know.
Plus, when you look at him under the mask, yeah, even though he's a white guy, his story, you know, his socioeconomic background, his status in the world, like, all of that's a very universal story that he has.
Yeah. Yeah. So anybody looked at Spider-Man could imagine that, okay, well, maybe he's one of us. up
Right.
under there, which is why I always thought that Spider-Man was so beloved but New Yorkers was fickle back then too, because J. Jonah James said they read the Daily Planet, they say, oh, Spider-Man's a crook. Yeah, that Spider-Man's a crook. Which is why I love that scene, which is probably my favorite Spider-Man movie, although I haven't seen Far From Home yet. I recorded it the other day. I got to watch it. But the scene in Spider-Man 2 where he saves the train, and then the people, they pick him up, and they carry him in the train, and then they give him back his mask. I always love that scene, because to me, that says to me how New York feels about, how they really feel about, Spider-Man.
You see, every one of those movies has, not only the Raimi films, but also the Mark Webb films, they have that New York loves Spider-Man movement. And maybe it's not because I'm not from New York, but those moments always ring a little bit heavy-handed to me.
Oh, interesting. Well, like you say, you're not from New York.
Right, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, but yeah, I've always...
Or maybe I'm just too cynical.
Well, no. Oh, because you know what? I think that you really do have to be from New York to appreciate that New York vibe and how New Yorkers feel about Spider-Man, because to me, he's always been like very much when he says, which is why I don't really go for him being with the Avengers and going into outer space and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Because there's a reason why he's known as your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Right. That's why I love that scene at the end of Homecoming when he refuses the offer to join the Avengers. I'm like, to me, that's Spider-Man. He knows that he's got a community to protect. He knows that he needs to put his neighborhood first and focus on them, because he doesn't want to lose sight of the little guy.
Yeah. There was an issue of the Avengers years ago where, because I remember it was some event they had going on, Spider-Man, he had disappeared. So the Avengers, they were looking for him and stuff like that. And one of the Avengers, I think it was Wonder Man or somebody like that, they were saying, well, why are we putting this much effort into finding, Spider-Man, find a way? And Iron Man says to him, because Spider-Man, if he's not out there on the street doing what he's doing, keeping down neighborhood crime, then we got to do it.
Yeah.
and we won't be able to look out for Thanos or Doctor Doom or something, which is what we're supposed to be doing.
Exactly. Right.
So guys like, Daredevil and Spider-Man and Luke Cage and everything like that, that's why and people say, oh, what, you don't think they're worthy to join the Avengers? That's got nothing to do with it. What's got to do with it is that they have a purpose. They have a place.
Exactly.
And they understand that, okay, this is where I can do the most good, which, folks, we going back to Meteor Man, which is why, again, I like this movie so much, in that he realizes that this is his place, his neighborhood.
Right.
Never once do we hear about him thinking about going out and, removing all the nuclear missiles in the world, or, doing all this other stuff that we traditionally associate with superheroes or saving the world, anything like that. He's concerned with taking care of his neighborhood and making sure that the people that live in his community are safe, which to me is always going to be a very powerful, potent message, no matter who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Do we have anything else to touch on about Meteor Man? Is there any other? Because I think I pretty much said everything I could think of. Is there anything else you want to mention about it?
Only that if you haven't yet seen Meteor Man, and I would like to just mention that this movie has had a cult following for years, because even while it wasn't a hit in movie theaters, you said you saw it on Blockbuster?
Yeah, because I'd seen ads for it, and then in comic books, and so then when I was in Blockbuster one day, I saw it on the shelf, and so I rented it, and so and I saw it when I was a little kid, and I remember at the time being a little bit disappointed in it, and I think it's because I just didn't really understand. I wasn't like you were saying at the beginning of the episode, there are some movies that just aren't meant for you, and even though I was a kid, I wasn't a black kid. This movie was not for me, and But now looking at it after having spoken with lots of black people, after knowing more about their experiences through listening to them, through reading about them, looking back on this movie, I can really appreciate what Townsend was trying to do with it.
Yeah, same here. I'm black, and I had to grow up a little to appreciate what he's trying to do with this movie. But it stayed alive all of these years because it became, even though it didn't do too good in the movie theaters, it became like a hit when it went to home video and repeated showings, of course, on cable like HBO and I mean, whatever. So it's still alive. Every once in a while, I do see it'll pop up, and of course you can rent it, buy the DVD. So it stayed alive all these years. And of course, like I said, people passed it down, to their kids. So the movie has enjoyed a cult popularity all of these years, and quite deservedly so, I think,
And you know what? That's another thing. So if Townsend is listening to this, or anyone who has some say, get this movie on a streaming service, because we had to go through hell to try to find the copies of it, because it's not available anywhere. Like, you can't even rent it on iTunes or Amazon. Like,
and it's available on DVD, but the DVD is like some ridiculous price, and I said, I wasn't willing to pay that much for it. If it had been less than $20, I'd have sprang for it. But
which I think means the DVD is out of print. So whoever owns the rights to this movie, get it on a streaming service. Put it on. I mean,
please, I
mean, geez, I hope it's Disney, because Disney, put it on Disney Plus, because it's a movie that more people should see.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if they come out with it, even if they came out with like a decent Blu-ray with like extras and deleted scenes, stuff like that, I'd spring for that.
Yeah, and I think they actually have material to do that stuff. Plus, you look at these actors, like so many of the actors who are in this movie, Robert Townsend, Don Cheadle, who's gone on to have a career as a superhero movie actor now. Bring those guys back and have them do a retrospective on this movie, because I think that would be really, I would love to see that. I would love to see something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love for him to get all of them together and do like a round table, discussion with, the actors that was it. Yeah. And, I definitely love that.
Because, like we were saying at the beginning of the episode, when people talk about black superhero movies, everyone thinks the Blade or Black Panther, which even of those, like Steel came out before Blade, which was less said about that, the better.
We don't talk about Steel.
But also Spawn, too, which also less said about it, the better.
We don't talk about Spawn. Keep moving, nothing to see here.
But yeah, the first one was actually Abar, the first Black Superman. But then the first big studio superhero movie was the Meteor Man, and it's been kind of lost to history, and that's a shame, because there is a lot of good in this movie.
It definitely is. And it's hard as hell to find. And actually, I'm going to, matter of fact, as I was talking to my wife about this last night after I saw it, she said, well, you should email whoever has the rights to it. She said, or even email Robert Townsend or Twitter him. And, I said, damn. She said, yeah. She said, you're on the internet all the time anyway. Do some good. I said, yeah. She said, find out. And, so I said, well, maybe I'll do that. She said, don't maybe, just go ahead and do it. Stop being lazy. So listen, folks, if we start an email campaign or something like that to get some interest going, we can get this movie on a streaming service, or even better, get a Blu-ray.
Yeah, because that would be awesome. It would be awesome to see some of those voices come back and be able to talk about the experiences making this movie, and even people who weren't involved, but people who were influenced by it. Because, you look at directors like Ryan Coogler, who made, an amazing black superhero movie. You took at, I guarantee you there are some black directors out there, some black actors who were influenced by this movie growing up. And, I would love to hear them talk about it.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, Ruth Carter, who won the Academy Award for the costume design for Black Panther. I would love to hear what, her talk about, working on this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to hear her talk about that.
All right. So I think that about does it. So now next week, or next episode, I do like this idea of spotlighting black superhero movies. So I do want to kind of continue it, even though we're breaking out of February. So I want to choose for the next movie the the greatest black superhero movie ever, and I am, of course, talking about Catwoman. I'm just kidding. No.
That's a good one.
No, what I do want to talk about, though, is next episode, I do want to talk about Black Panther.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, listen, it's the elephant in the room, so we might as well get to it and knock it out of the way. And as a matter of fact, I watched it on my birthday. Just finished watching. Yeah. Well, I bought the Blu-ray day one. I think I've seen that movie a good 6 to 8 times.
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorite MCU movies.
Yeah.
So yes.
I mean, that's a movie. That's a movie. Well, I don't want to get into it now because we're going to do it next. But this is say that every time I watch that movie, I am more in awe of the accomplishment.
That absolutely.
They did in that thing. That thing is absolutely mind blowing on every level.
Yeah. So we'll talk. We'll both have a lot to say about that in the next episode. So so be sure to join us the next episode. Talk about that. Give us a hand. Toss us $5. Join up. Follow us on Patreon. Patreon.com Superhero Cinephiles, or join up with our Facebook group Superhero Cinephiles and join the conversation. Derrick posts up reviews up there occasionally. He just posted up his Birds of Prey review on there, I believe. And
yep. So go there and read it.
Yeah. And website superherocinephiles.com. Thank you so much for listening. Leave us a review, toss us some cash on Patreon, and we will talk to you next time.
Good night. God bless, and thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. If you have any questions or comments about this or any other episode, or if you have a superhero movie or TV show you'd like us to cover in a future episode, you can email us at superherocinephiles@gmail.com, or you can also visit us on the web at superherocinephiles.com. If you like what you hear, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. Each review helps us reach more potential listeners. You can also support the show by renting or purchasing the movies discussed, or by picking up our books, all of which can be accessed through the website, as well as find links to our social media presences. The theme music for this show is a shortened version of Superhero Showdown, a royalty-free piece of music courtesy of FezleonStudios.com.